Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Mr. Lewis, and today we're going through the entire Cambridge Psychology paper to exactly the way we did for paper 1. For every question, I'll show you the exact question, give you the perfect answer, tell you exactly where it comes from in the study or textbook, and share extra tips so you really understand why it scores full marks. Let's dive in. Question 1. Andrade or doodling? Starting with Question 1 from Andrade's doodling study. Part A. Identify one way participants' recall was measured in this study. One way participants' recall was measured was by counting the number of names correctly recalled, or the number of places correctly recalled, or by using the combined recall score. This comes straight from Andrade's 2009 paper. Participants listened to a boring mock telephone message with 8 names and 8 places. Afterwards, they had a surprise memory test, and the researchers simply counted how many they remembered correctly. It's a quick 1-mark question, so just be precise with the exact measure. Part B. Explain one strength of using doodling as the experimental task. One strength is that doodling keeps participants cognitively engaged with a simple shading task. This stops them from daydreaming while listening to the boring message, so they pay better attention and their recall becomes more consistent and reliable. Andrade's paper explains that doodling helps people stay focused when they're bored, and the results showed the doodling group remembered 29% more information. That's why this strength works so well in this study. Question 2. Perry et al. Personal space. From Perry et al. On personal space. Part A. Identify one method used to measure personal space behavior. One common method is the stop distance technique, also called the comfortable interpersonal distance task or the room selection task. As you can see from the diagrams on the slide, participants either stopped a virtual figure approaching them or chose their preferred chair distance from photos. The key is that personal space was measured objectively through actual physical distance. Part B. Explain one weakness of using field experiments in research on personal space. One weakness is the low control over extraneous variables like noise, passers-by, or situational cues. In a real-world setting, any change in behavior might be caused by outside influences, rather than the variable being studied, which reduces internal validity. Even though Perry et al. Used lab tasks, this question tests your broader understanding of field experiments. Alright. Moving from personal space to something very different. A case study. Question 3. From the study by Saavedra and Silverman, button phobia. Part A. Identify one type of data collected during the fear hierarchy process. They collected subjective distress ratings using the feelings thermometer, a scale from 0 to 8. They also recorded observed behaviors like crying or avoidance. Part B. Explain one strength of using a case study designed for this research. A major strength is the rich, in-depth data it provides about one unique individual. The researcher could observe the child's exact emotional reactions in real time and immediately adapt the treatment. For example, switching to disgust-related imagery when distress increased, which eventually led to complete long-term remission. Nice work on question 3. Now let's look at one of the most famous studies in psychology. Question 4 from Milgram's obedience study. Part A. Identify one way Milgram controlled extraneous variables in this study. Milgram used several strong controls. He used the same experimenter, a 31-year-old high school teacher who played the authority figure consistently for every participant. He used the same shock machine, the 15 to 450 volt generator, in every trial, so the visual and auditory stimuli
were identical. He also used the same standardized verbal prods, the famous 4 prods from "please continue" all the way to "you have no other choice, you must go on." And everything took place in the same laboratory environment at Yale University. You can see all these details clearly on the slide from the original paper. These controls made sure that any differences in obedience were due to the situation, not because something changed between participants. Part B. Explain one weakness of using a volunteer self-selected sample in this study. One weakness is that people who volunteer for psychology studies are often more helpful or obedient than the average person. Milgram recruited 40 males aged 20 to 50 who responded to a newspaper advertisement for a memory and learning study at Yale. Because it was a self-selected sample, these participants may have had personality traits like higher compliance, which means the sample wasn't truly representative of the general population. This limits how far we can generalize the findings to everyone.
The textbook explains this really well. Volunteers tend to be better educated and have more free time, and in Milgram's case, they were probably more willing to obey an authority figure. Next, we move into the research methods section with question 5. Part A. Describe structured interviews and unstructured interviews using any example or examples. Structured interviews use a fixed list of predetermined questions that are asked in exactly the same order for every participant. They usually include closed questions with fixed answer options. For example, do you exercise every day? Yes or no? Because everything is standardized, this type of interview produces quantitative data that is easy to compare between different participants. Unstructured interviews are more like a guided conversation. The interviewer starts with a general topic but asks open questions that allow the participant to give detailed responses in their own words. For example, can you tell me about your experiences with exercise? This approach produces rich qualitative data, full of personal detail and depth. To get full marks on this 6-mark question, you need to cover the definition, give a clear example, and explain the type of data each method produces. That combination shows the examiner you really understand the difference. Part B. Define open questions. Open questions are questions that allow participants to give detailed, unrestricted responses in their own words. They don't limit the person to a set of fixed answer choices. For instance, while a closed question might say, "Did you sleep well last night? Yes or no?" An open question would ask, "How would you describe the quality of your sleep recently?" Letting the participants share much more personal and meaningful information. Excellent! That's question 5 done. Let's continue with another observation scenario. Question 6. Observation study, children sharing toys. A researcher wants to observe how often children share toys during free play time in a school playground. She is deciding how to structure her observation and how to record the data. Part A. OSI. The researcher is considering using a structured observation. What is meant by a structured observation? A structured observation is when the researcher uses a fixed checklist of specific behaviors that observers must look for and record. Everything is pre-decided in advance. Part 10 suggests one advantage of using a structured observation in this study. One advantage is that it improves consistency. Because every observer is given the same fixed checklist, they all look for and record exactly the same behaviors. This makes the results more reliable because different observers are less likely to interpret things differently. This is called increasing inter-observer reliability. Part B. What is meant by event sampling? Event sampling is a method where the observer records every single time a specific behavior occurs during the observation period. In this study, that would mean noting down every single time a child shares a toy. Part B say, why might event sampling be more useful than time sampling here? Event sampling is more useful here because sharing toys can happen unpredictably at any moment during free play. Time sampling, on the other hand, only checks for the behavior at fixed time intervals, for example, every 30 seconds. This means the observer might miss many sharing incidents that happen between those intervals. Part C. Explain one way the researcher could operationalize sharing toys. She could define sharing as passing a toy to another child, or allowing another child to play with the toy for at least 3 seconds. Clear definitions like this make the observation much more reliable. Next up is question 7, a scenario-based question about questionnaires. The scenario: a psychologist wants to investigate whether there is an association between hours of sleep and concentration in school among teenagers. She plans to use a questionnaire that asks about how many hours they slept the previous night and how well they could concentrate in lessons that day. She's worried about the reliability and validity of her questionnaire. Part A. Suggest one way the psychologist could assess the test-retest reliability of her questionnaire. She could administer the same questionnaire to the same group of teenagers on 2 different occasions. For example, 2 weeks apart, and then compare the scores. If the results are very similar both times, this shows good test-retest reliability. Part B suggests one change she could make to improve the reliability of the concentration questions. She could use well-defined rating scales with clear descriptions. For example, 1 equals could not concentrate at all to 5 equals could concentrate extremely well, and remove any ambiguous or vague wording. This way, all teenagers will interpret the questions in exactly the same way, reducing variation caused by different understandings. Part C. Explain what is meant by validity in the context of this questionnaire. Validity means how accurately the questionnaire measures what it claims to measure. In this case, it refers to how well the questions actually reflect the teenagers' real sleep patterns and their actual concentration levels in lessons. Part D. Explain one strength and one weakness of using a self-report questionnaire to measure sleep and concentration. Strength. One strength is that self-report questionnaires are very practical. Teenagers can directly report private information, such as exactly how many hours they slept, which would be difficult or impossible for a researcher to observe directly. Weakness. One weakness is that participants may not answer honestly. Teenagers might exaggerate how well they slept or concentrated because of social desirability bias. They want to appear better than they actually are. This reduces the validity of the data. Question 8. Laboratory experiment. Background noise. Now let's move to question 8. Laboratory experiment. The scenario. A researcher wants to find out whether background noise affects performance on a mental arithmetic test. Participants are randomly allocated to one of 2 conditions. Condition A. Complete the test in a quiet room. Condition B. Complete the test in a room with loud background chatter played through speakers. The researcher is concerned about control, measurement, and ethical issues. Part A. Identify the independent variable in this study. The independent variable is the level of background noise. Specifically, whether participants complete the mental arithmetic test in a quiet room or in a loud room with background chatter. Quick reminder, the independent variable, or IV, is the factor the researcher deliberately manipulates to see its effect on the dependent variable. Part B suggests one way the researcher could objectively measure performance on the mental arithmetic test. One good way is to record both the time taken to complete the test and the number of correct answers. Using both measures gives a more complete picture of performance, including both speed and accuracy. Part C. Explain one advantage of conducting this study in a laboratory setting. One major advantage is that the researcher has high control over extraneous variables such as lighting, temperature, noise level, and other distractions. This improves the reliability of the results because the only thing systematically changing is the independent variable, the noise level. Part D. Explain one disadvantage of conducting this study in a laboratory setting. One disadvantage is that the artificial laboratory environment may cause participants to behave unnaturally. They might experience demand characteristics, so they in changing their behavior because they know they are being studied. This lowers the ecological validity of the findings, as the results may not reflect how people perform in real-life situations. Part E. Suggest one ethical issue that might arise in this study and explain how the researcher could deal with it. One ethical issue is that the loud background chatter in condition B could cause psychological stress or discomfort to participants. To deal with this, the researcher should obtain informed consent by clearly warning participants about the noise in advance. Give participants the right to withdraw at any time. Ensure the noise level is kept safe and not harmful. Provide a full debrief at the end, explaining the purpose of the study. Quick teaching. Break. How to create your own study, step by step. Before we finish with question 9, here's something really useful. In paper 2, you often have to design your own study, especially in 10-mark questions. Here's a clear step-by-step guide you can follow. Step 1. Start with a clear research aim. Decide exactly what you want to investigate and turn it into a testable hypothesis. Write an operationalized hypothesis. Make it specific. Say exactly what you will change and measure. Decide if it will be directional or non-directional, and don't forget the null hypothesis. Step 2. Identify and operationalize your variables. Clearly define your independent variable, what you will manipulate, and dependent variable, what you will measure. Make both very specific so anyone could repeat them exactly. Decide how many levels the IV will have and whether you need a control condition. Step 3. Choose the type of experiment. Decide between a laboratory experiment for high control or a field experiment for more natural behavior. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. Step 4. Choose the experimental design. Will you use independent measures, repeated measures, or matched pairs? Think about the strengths and weaknesses of each and how you will deal with order effects or participant variables, for example, randomization or counterbalancing. Step 5. Plan controls and standardization. Identify possible confounding variables and control them. Standardize the procedure. Same instructions, same materials, same environment for everyone. Always run a pilot study first to test and improve your method. Step 6. Address ethical issues. Very important. Follow the ethical guidelines. Get informed consent. Give the right to withdraw. Protect participants from harm. Avoid deception or debrief fully. Ensure confidentiality. and get approval from your school/college ethical committee if needed. Step 7. Write the full procedure. Include exact instructions, how participants are recruited and allocated, materials, how the DV is recorded, and what happens in the debrief. Step 8. Run the study. Use the improved pilot version, treat every participant exactly the same, and record the data carefully. Step 9. Evaluate your study afterwards. Ask yourself, was the design the best choice? Were controls effective? How was validity and reliability? Any ethical issues? How could it be improved? Quick checklists, great for exam answers. Aim plus hypothesis written. IV and DV clearly defined. Type of experiment and design chosen. Controls in place. Ethics followed. Procedure standardized. Data collection ready. Question 9. Dr. Samara's correlation study. And finally, we reach question 9. The correlation study. The scenario. Dr. Samara works in a university counseling center. She believes there may be a correlation between the number of stressful events students report in a week and their self-rated level of anxiety. Part A. Describe how Dr. Samara could conduct a study to investigate whether there is a correlation between weekly stressful events and anxiety levels. Do not describe sampling or ethical issues. Dr. Samara should start by clearly operationalizing both covariables. She could ask students to keep a weekly stress event log where they count the number of stressful events they experience each week. For example, arguments, exams, deadlines, or presentations. At the same time, she would give them a standardized anxiety rating scale. For instance, a 0 to 10 Likert scale asking, "How anxious have you felt this week?" Participants would complete both measures at the end of each week for 4 to 6 weeks. She would record all the data in a table showing the number of stressful events and the anxiety score for each participant each week. Finally, she would plot the data on a scatter graph and calculate a correlation coefficient, either Spearman's or Pearson's, to see whether there is a positive correlation between the two variables. This detailed procedure is what pushes your answer up to the full level 3, 8 to 10 marks. Examiners want to see that you understand how a correlation study actually works from start to finish. Part B. For one of the variables in Part A, explain one practical strength and one practical limitation of measuring this variable. Let's use the weekly stressful events log as our example. Practical strength. It is easy and practical to measure because students already track their schedules and daily activities. Reporting stressful events requires no special equipment and takes very little extra time, making data collection efficient and low cost. Practical limitation. Students might forget to record some events or may misreport them due to memory errors or social desirability, which would reduce the accuracy and validity of the data. And that's the complete paper too. You've now seen every single expected question with full, high-mark answers and clear explanations. Your next step is to pause the video, try writing the answers yourself, then compare with what we covered. That's how you improve fast. If you want me to adjust anything or turn this into a full recorded lesson, just let me know. You've got this. Good luck with your revision, and I'll see you in the next video.